This is an amazing conversation. I wish I could have been here on the couch. I feel like I missed a lot, but how's everyone feeling?
Good.
No, yeah, we're feeling
really
good.
Where did we start and where are we now in terms of your answers to is fame it?
My answer was no, and I would say it hasn't changed, but you all have definitely like opened my mind to like things that I hadn't thought about. How you were talking about how using fame as like a platform to spread good or spread awareness about something. When I always kind of saw it as like it could be negative, or it's more so a negative trait than positive, but I guess it's how you use it.
Exactly.
Interesting.
I said yes, IDK maybe. So I feel like
we love nuance.
And so it's still kind of there. I feel like though after this conversation, I'm more secure in the yes, especially just kind of like listening to you guys talk about kind of the political and social obligations of fame, and just seeing that people do believe that fame can be a tool to spread good and spread awareness to things.
So I was originally a yes.
Okay.
I'm still a yes, but I feel like there's so much more to discuss and talk about, and I think there's some really valid points that I'm considering.
I think at the top of the conversation, I was a no with nuance. I'm still a no with nuance.
I honestly am still kind of in the middle, but I think I'm more of a firm no in terms of asking ourselves, is fame it? I think it's something and can have a positive impact, but I don't know if it's the end all be all. I'd love to know your thoughts. I think that's something maybe we haven't touched on yet. When you become in the public eye, and maybe Alexis, you know this very well considering you have a lot of followers, do you feel like once you're in the public eye, you have to give a piece of yourself away because now you owe a piece of yourself to the public?
Yeah, I agree so much with what you just said, because it's like fame, at least to me, which is why I'm so no with nuance, like it cannot be your end all be all, kind of similar to what you're saying, like you have to have some sort of passion or something else behind it. Because I think like I'm gonna have to open up my phone every day to seeing people calling me like a monkey and like the N-word and death threats and everything. If I wasn't so passionate about what I do outside of that, or just like the reason why I put myself, in front of so many people, I could not and would not be doing it.
Wow.
So,
I mean, that's something that I don't think any of us have even considered, is not necessarily the tolls of being in the public eye, but also the reception from people who now can find you and just show up at your door and shout nasty things at you just to be a horrible person. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry that is your experience. What are your thoughts? Do you feel like when celebrities or influencers or public figures become in the public eye, do we still owe them the same right to privacy and boundaries that we have as everyday people? What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. I think so anyway.
Kemi, what do you think? I see your questioning.
Because I don't know, I believe that everyone deserves privacy, but then part of me is like, it doesn't seem like you can pick and choose the parts of fame that you want. It's like you can't just be like, I want all the good parts that come with fame and none of the bad parts. I don't think it should be a complete lack of privacy, and I think that's where some people draw the line. Why are you showing up to people's houses? Why are you in their backyard? Sure. You want people to follow you. You capitalize off of people being obsessed with you, and now you're kind of crying because they want to know about you. And I'm kind of exaggerating a little bit, but that's why it's difficult for me to firmly be yes, they deserve the same levels as we do, because at the end of the day they're benefiting from fames in a way that we are not benefiting from fames.
That is particular to the situation where a person is getting famous just to be famous. But I think in this situation where fame or a following, for example, is kind of tangential to the work that you've been doing. For example, someone brought up child stars earlier. You were not maybe necessarily striving for fame, and now you're in this situation and you're well, I didn't really choose that. The reason why I have a following is because I made a website for the social justice movement that got popular. My sort of MO is social justice. I didn't ask to get this other vitriol about, whatever else. So I think it's tough because it's people want to go out and do the good work or do maybe what they're passionate about, whether that's, acting or being on Broadway and stuff like that. And then to kind of get your personhood almost ripped from you because you're going off to do the thing that you are really passionate about and enjoy is kind of sucks.
It's super interesting. I was thinking a lot about the royal family coming into today's conversation, because I think that's an interesting example of how celebrity plays out in a very toxic way. If you've seen the Harry and Meghan docuseries, they talk a lot about the tabloids and how essentially they have no privacy at all. Every aspect of their lives is broadcasted, whether true or false, into tabloids. But someone recently said to me, I think it was my brother, where he pointed out that the way the monarchy works in the UK is that you pay taxes that go towards the royal family. So in a sense, I guess you're allowed to know about their lives because to some extent you're funding it and you're making it happen. So I was thinking about that for today because I think today's modern celebrity also profits off of us being their followers, right? And people capitalizing off of their audiences, and that's how they are celebrities. So do you see a similar apples to apples that we kind of are owed some sort of access to celebrities' lives because we're making their celebrity happen?
I think it's really interesting too, because if you look at the royal family, they're not only a governmental institution, but they're a brand. But then within that brand, you have like Meghan Markle, you have Prince Harry, so those are people. So I think each person, I think they're entitled to some sort of privacy. It's not going to be the same sort of privacy that an average person is going to get. I think you can pick and choose what parts of yourself you want to keep to yourself. You don't have a say like what the media is going to report on, what people are going to say about you, but you can keep certain aspects of your life private. It might get leaked, but you can do your best to keep that information to yourself.
And I think the question is, what are the fans owed? Like, have any of you ever approached a celebrity for a selfie when maybe they were having a meal and they wanted that private moment? Like, where do you draw that line?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think if you're a movie star, you owe your fans movies. If you're an artist, you owe your fans maybe like think about like the Frank Ocean thing, like a really good concert. Like that is kind of what you owe your fans. Like I don't think you owe them private moments, but that's just like my view. And like particular to me, like if I saw like Phoebe Bridgers is my favorite artist, if I saw her on the street and she was like, you know, eating with her family, I'm not going up and being like, hey Phoebe, can I get a selfie? Like, but that is, you know, it's going to be up to every individual person to be like, you know, where is my personal line?
I agree. And I'm glad you brought up the Frank Ocean situation as well, because a lot of people were saying, well, you know, he's Frank Ocean, like what did he owe us? And I was like, well, what did he owe the industry? Like, you know, there are people that were building his sets, breaking down the sets, like who were like, well, you know, he still performed, but he didn't give what he had promised in the beginning. That's a contractual obligation, you know, but just because he's a celebrity, we can get away with it. I don't think that's necessarily okay.
No matter what, it can be misconstrued or perceived positively, right? If Phoebe Bridgers was there and you asked for a selfie and she said no, you could go online and say she's a horrible person. Everyone's perception of celebrities is so different. I want to bring in one more question.
Okay.
So this question is actually from our friends at Urban Legend that's sponsoring today's conversation. Urban Legend is a platform that encourages creators to promote the issues that matter to them and drive their audience towards those opportunities. And Urban Legend wanted me to ask you all this question. A study reported that the #1 reason for Gen Z to become influencers is to make a difference in the world. Are you seeing that trend among creators? Are you using creators' influence for good?
I think for me, a lot of the creators that I follow them because we're creating really cool things. I like to model, I like to create videos, so I like looking at other people's work and creating artwork. So it's not necessarily the same type of like social impact that you'd see, but for me it serves like a creative purpose.
I feel like the people I follow, the creators I follow on TikTok, they are not like the social justice warriors. They're not advocating for like change and social change. Like that's not the goal of them becoming creators. It's just clear like they either are a creator because they like hopped on TikTok one day, made videos, have like a natural personality in front of the cameras, and they want to like make a living off of it and don't want to work like a typical job, which I think is completely fine.
It's interesting that you perceive it that way when the research shows that our generation wants to be influencers because of the ability to do good.
Yeah.
So it's a mix, I guess.
Sometimes people feel like it takes a lot to create that change. So even when you get that platform, it doesn't always feel easy to actually make an impact. So it's like you have to actually take that time and create that space, even if you already have a platform. It's a scary topic, you know, just talking about these issues that people are passionate about. What if you say the wrong thing? What if you're misconstrued? You know, we have a huge cancel culture right now. So what if something like that happens and you lose your whole platform? So it's scary, and I think that's one of the issues. I think that's why people aren't always taking that stance.
Absolutely. So let's take this conversation one step further. I invited someone very special to join our conversation, Mark Gaetano. Do you follow Snarky Marky?
I've seen him on TikTok.
He's an icon, and I think he would have a really interesting perspective to add to the mix. So let's bring him on. Mark, welcome to POVz. We're so happy you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so honored to be here, and I'm really excited to get this conversation started.
Let's do it. So here's what you missed. There was an amazing conversation had between Alexis, Anne-Marie, Kemi, and Jacob about the question, is fame it? And pretty much everyone's views have stayed kind of the same. Alexis and Jacob do not think fame is it. Anne-Marie and Kemi do think fame is it, but with some yes and some nuance. So I want to start off by asking you that question. Mark, what's your take? Is fame it?
Well, first of all, I'm honored that you would use the word fame pertaining to me. So thank you. I mean, it's very subjective, but I think it's a double-edged sword. That's my overarching opinion of it. I think that there's definitely a lot of pros to it, but then in accomplishing those pros, there's a lot of cons and things that aren't very it.
Mark, where does that point of view come from? Like, do you feel like you've always had that stance on this question, or has it changed over time?
Well, prior to my social media journey, I had always strived for fame. I always wanted to be someone, and it was something that I always wanted to achieve. But as I sort of experienced, I guess, fame, I noticed some setbacks and some hindrances that I did not anticipate, which really shifted my view on it.
Thank you for sharing that. And I was actually going to ask you if being famous was something that you sought out to do. Do you think, and this is a big question, but since we're a Gen Z show, do you feel like fame is something that our generation should be striving for?
I don't think that people should be striving for it. However, I think that becoming famous is a lot more accessible and open for our generation and during this time, just through social media, because social media, whether you're making YouTube videos, whether you're posting on TikTok, there's a whole world out there that can be accessed through these social media apps. And I think that social media is a great place to start if you do want to become famous. And I think it's a lot easier compared to prior to social media times.
That's exactly what I said. Or I just said that it's more like attainable today because we have so many platforms in order to achieve that status. But it's interesting that you brought that up. We were all like giving each other the side eye.
Yeah.
We just chatted about that.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, if you look at people like Emma Chamberlain, Liza Koshy, they're walking the Met Gala carpets, and it's crazy because they started off by posting on YouTube, and it's just crazy how you can start on a social media app and end up with the A-listers on the Met Gala carpet. It's crazy.
Have you noticed like a change in the content that you're putting out since gaining this like giant following? The things that you would put out just for you, for fun, or whatever brought you joy, have you noticed a change in what you're putting out based on the audience that you're putting it out for?
I think that I definitely look in my comments and see what people like. I am someone who is very observant, and I do notice patterns everywhere. So I do look at what does well and what maybe doesn't. So if a series is going well, I'm going to continue to push that out until it starts to wane a little bit. But for the most part, I post what I like to make and what I think will make people laugh and maybe inspire people. But I mostly do videos for me, what I like to do.
Jacob's question sparked a question for me. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you felt like you were being forced to put out content, or you were putting out content that maybe you didn't like, or maybe it made you feel some type of way, but you felt like you needed to put it out?
Honestly, I, from the top of my head, cannot recall a time where I've not enjoyed filming something. So I think that I have started out by posting videos that I like and saw that other people enjoyed watching them too. And so it's kind of a win-win situation there. And I honestly, no, I don't think I've ever posted a video that I didn't feel comfortable putting out.
Okay, that's nice, because I know there are people who probably would say otherwise. So I think it's good that you've been able to kind of maintain your integrity, I guess.
Yes, and I'm really glad that I've been able to as well.
Pretty rare. I don't think I've
I
ever
agree.
heard someone answer that
Yeah.
question.
Good
That
for
way
you,
it's
Mark.
amazing. Go, Mark. Yes,
Go,
Mark.
Mark. So I'm curious, if you didn't have the following and the platform that you have now, would you still be creating content? And if so, would it be the same or would it differ in any way?
That's a good question. Honestly, I don't think that I would be making the content that I did today. Looking back at it from when I started in 2019, I honestly can't believe that I posted some of that stuff while also being in high school and being surrounded by other people my age, because people in high school are scary. They are judgmental there, all that. So I honestly don't think that I would be doing that presently, because it would kind of be like talking to a wall. But I think my audience enjoys that content and enjoys me for me, and that's why I like to do it.
What do you think is the worst part about being a public figure?
I have a couple answers for that, but the one that's most applicable now, I feel, is the whole digital footprint situation. I'm currently, approaching the end of my undergraduate degree, and I'm starting to look for internships and jobs, and I feel like I've been faced with some, scrutiny for what I do post online, just being goofy and silly online. And I feel like a lot of employers and corporate people don't take me seriously because of it. But I really wish that people would understand that that's just one side of me, the true Gemini that I am. I have two sides to me. There's also a couple other cons, being faced with scrutiny for everything you do. I could post a silly video and someone's going to say something about my hair, something about my body, whatever. That part is really frustrating. And then also some privacy invasions sometimes really do get under my skin. For the most part, the pros of being a social media content creator definitely outweigh the cons.
I asked Mark the question, is fame something that our generation should be striving for? And the reason I asked that question, and please don't fault me for misinformation, this is something that a friend shared with me that has been on my mind, who has connections to someone who works at TikTok. So this may or may not be true, but from what I've learned from reading a lot, is that the way that the algorithm on TikTok works in America is that it has created a creator economy that values people who create content that can be perceived as silly or, for the most part, maybe unnecessary. Whereas in other countries where TikTok is prevalent, let's say China, they have an algorithm that really pushes content that favors educators and people who are pushing kind of an overall academic line of content, and has created influencers who are known for that academia. And to me, that could say that maybe there's some underlying force, maybe trying to breed some sort of culture in America that makes our generation not want to strive to be academics or people who are pushing forward more textbook professions, because that won't perform well online. And now that we saw that report that shows that our generation wants to be influencers, it just makes me wonder, do you ever worry that our generation is striving for fame now, maybe because of external forces? Is there something to be said for why our generation wants to be famous, and do you think it could ever be because of some larger conversation around, us not wanting to pursue more traditional careers? What are your thoughts?
I actually don't think it's a conspiracy at all. I think TikTok is a business, and I think they're creating an algorithm that speaks to the most people in that country. So I think in places like China, I think education is more valued. Whereas I think in the States, I think we're a lot more focused on pop culture, on fame, on things like this. I actually don't think TikTok is the one that's breeding this type of culture. I think it's already here. I think this is what TikTok, or the people at TikTok, what they think we're looking for. And obviously it is, because it's working. People are still watching videos on TikTok. TikTok is one of the most popular social media platforms right now. So I think maybe it says more about our society and our culture than it does about what is being fed to us.
Interesting.
I was going to honestly say something really similar, like when you were starting to talk about the algorithm, or like when anyone online talks about the algorithm, like my tech side jumps out, because I'm like, okay guys, let me explain. Our individual algorithms feed our individual interests. Just people online are being fed like this large amount of, maybe silly content, because maybe that's, what a large, I guess, percentage of people who are on TikTok want to consume. I was kind of like, that's interesting, because my For You page is probably like 75% educational, like always talking about different bills coming out and like what's happening in politics or science, for example. I don't know if it's just my TikTok, but like next to like where it says like friends For You page, I have a page that says STEM, and it's just STEM videos, like, and because that's tailored specifically to me, and TikTok is like, exactly, TikTok is feeding me exactly the kind of content that I want. I don't know if I want to take any onus off of from a business perspective, what businesses are doing, but I do think it's more so speaking to what we as a culture are sort of gravitating towards. But I do think that everything is connected, and that it is worth investigating, why are we leaning towards this or that? Not saying that one is better than the other, or just that like all of our experiences are different, and that's going to have sort of an impact on the way that our country sort of progresses.
Totally. And Mark, what's your take? Like, let's say there is a world where the algorithm or the forces that be are pushing sillier content to our generation in particular. Do you find that at all troubling, that maybe there is this trend that our generation wants to be influencers as opposed to doctors, lawyers, educators? What's your take?
I think that there's definitely a lot of room in society and in the economy for content creators who are pushing content that may not have a lot of substance towards it. However, I do think that it is causing some societal implications because people are going above and beyond and being reckless to have their social media moment. I'm seeing the resurgence of people opening up freezers at grocery stores and licking the ice cream tubs and things like that, and just doing outrageous things in grocery stores in public. And I think that sometimes it goes a little bit too far. However, I do feel like being a content creator for the most part doesn't harm anybody. And I think it's kind of a cultural thing here. I'm from Canada, but I think the culture is relatively very similar. I think a lot of it's cute, it's fun, I don't think there's any harm to it.
I feel like I kind of agree with Mark in the sense that I don't necessarily see the harm to it. I think we've lived in a society that literally pushed us towards STEM literally since birth and has been pushing people towards like STEM fields, and like no one's ever seen like a problem with that. And I don't think it's a problem now that in people's minds there's more opportunities that like college or certain fields, whether that be medical, law, engineering, whatever, like that's not the end all be all. Like if you want to be successful and you want to be financially stable, like STEM and those type of jobs, those more traditional roles aren't the only way to achieve that. And I think that's where I find like the beauty and the good in it per se. I just think it's opening up people's mindsets and just people's opportunities and just giving people an opportunity to like pick the life that they want and just live a more fulfilled life in the way they want to, in a way that they enjoy, which I feel like is something that wasn't pushed before like this whole kind of rise of social media.
And I think a lot of criticism comes from people who are used to the standard, like working a 9 to 5, which is also totally okay. But I think even my parents will be like, why are you making TikTok videos? Why are you doing this? And it's like, I think it's just a different mindset that people don't understand. And I think they view content creation or being an influencer or being a celebrity as being something that's unworthy. It's not the same type of hard work that they're used to. It doesn't mean that it's easy, it's just a different type of work.
Maybe that trend that we are seeing is actually a reflection of our generations wanting to escape what's happening offline.
Really
like we're probably so overwhelmed with politics and school shootings and the overturning of Roe and all of the issues that we've seen our generation prioritizes. And maybe we come to TikTok as an escape, or we want that lighthearted, silly content because that's what keeps us sane. And I also think our generation doesn't like to take things far too seriously. So
as maybe a Gen Z, as a woman, as a Black person, it's just like I'm always faced with something. Like it's always in my face. Like if I wanted to go and cry about the world, I would go outside or I would turn on the news. Like I don't want to have to always be confronted with really heavy topics.
Mark, before you go, we like to ask every guest on the show to drop a hot take. So do you have a hot take to share with us today?
This is my always go-to. I think that country music, particularly female country music, is top tier music. That's my take. A lot of people like to slam on country, say it's bad, say it's always talking about the same stuff, but the women in country, keep your eyes out and ears out for them because they're killing it.
I love that.
No, you're right. People sleep on country music. People drag it, but
like
sometimes
country
it be a little
music.
bop. Okay.
I was not expecting that from you. I didn't pick you as a country music girly. Do you have a favorite country music artist?
I like Kelsey Ballerini. Her new EP is phenomenal. And Casey Musgraves, Carrie Underwood, love them all.
Oh my gosh, Mark, that was a great take. I don't know if it was so spicy, but we'll take it. We'll take it.
A lot of people think it's spicy. They say I don't look like a country music fan, but I love it.
Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for being here, Mark.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun, such a great pleasure, and I've absolutely loved being a part of this.
And thank you all so much for being here and for sharing your viewpoints today. This was an interesting conversation, and I hope we can keep it going from here.
No, yeah, thanks for inviting us.
Oh my gosh, anytime, come back, hang out. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We can't unify without all of us, you and I, so let's keep the conversations going.
Definitely.
Awesome, okay.
Yay.
Doing some claps.
Hey, it's Ethan Wan from the Conversationalist community. Thank you so much for watching our POVz episode on fame. The best part about TC is that we want to hear everyone's point of view, including yours. Just text the word fame to 1-877-222-1119 to get access to all things TC, and we hope to feature you on a future episode. See you next time.
Selfie.
Or should someone like hold him?
Yeah, I know. And that would be a little bit more awkward. We'll do one of these. Ready? 1, 2, 3.